Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show. This episode is brought to you by The Wellness Paradigm, a holistic health coaching company shifting the way that women understand and heal their bodies. Through bioenergetic testing, functional lab testing, and functional nutrition, we uncover what traditional approaches often overlook. So you can stop guessing, start healing, and finally feel like yourself again. No more one-size-fits-all protocols, just real answers, deep-rooted healing, and the clarity and confidence you deserve to feel incredible. It's time to shift the paradigm of women's health. Now on to our show. And good afternoon, Loni.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Yes, I feel like we have so much in common. I'm really excited for her to bring a beautiful perspective to all of you guys on, gosh, so many different things. I don't want to steal your thunder, but she is a neurosomatic life coach who helps women really just stop this internal battle and rewire their nervous systems so their brain and their bodies can be aligned, or as she says, they can be besties. And I love this approach so much. I'd love for you to just take it from here. Please give us a little bit more of an idea on who you are and how you got started in this line of practice.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I love your intro because pieces of that is so aligned with who I am. And this idea that there's this one size fits all approach to wellness. So much of what we have learned over the years has been conditional, has been passed down, that's not even ours. And it's time to really take back our own health by connecting deeper with our body, with our belly, with our cells, with our nervous system. And so that is what I do. As you said, I'm a neurosomatic life coach. What that really means is that I work through the body with the nervous system somatically. So everything is body led, but it's not get out of your head and into your body. It's get your brain, your ego mind, your nervous system also to connect with the core, the soul, the heart, so the body and the brain become the same team. So we stop that inner critic and inner battle. And this work is really like near and dear to me, not just professionally, but personally, right? Like I been around a long time. I don't know many women who have not had some sort of inner critic, dis dysfunctional, I'll even say, relationship to their own self, to their own body, whether it's on the plate, off their plate. We have these stories we tell ourselves, these shoulds that we live in, these boxes we feel like we need to check because when this happens, we'll be whole. When this happens, we'll be healthy. And, I lived my life like that for way too long. Even as a nutrition coach back in the day, 20 years ago, it was about a plan. It was about eat more kale, drink more water, sleep more. And not that those things are wrong or bad. Please do those if you don't. But not that those things are wrong or bad. But that is not what makes me well. That is not what makes me whole. That is not what makes me thrive. And that constant looking outside of ourselves for the next plan, the big fix, the whatever, takes us away from creating a relationship with our body.
Yep.
Creating that connection that we didn't learn.
Mm-hmm.
We were taught to fix ourselves.
Yep.
We live in a system that says we're broken. And so here, take the pill, do this, whatever, as opposed to like, what's my body really telling me?
Mm-hmm.
And how do I quiet all the external noise so I could listen? And so that is sort of my mission, is to help people really come back to home to their own body using the nervous system and what I call, the belly, the core, which is, I have a Pilates background as well. I've been teaching for 18 years. And so the core, we call it in Pilates, as you know, is the powerhouse, right? The place you house your power. And so we're so disconnected from this as what I call your compass. Your core is your compass. It's your guide. And so my mission is to teach people how to come back into that place and use these tools that we have within our own self as the quote unquote plan, of how we move forward. So that's generally, I could give you a little bit of how I got into this if you want.
Yeah, I think this is so important, right? Because again, coming from a nutritionist background, started health and fitness, kind of transitioned into a little bit more of, now I do bioenergetics, but also nervous system, is like I saw the biggest shift in women's health when they got away from all the damn protocols and macros. And I'm not saying it doesn't have its time and place, but you disconnect from your body and you're just like relying on a meal plan or a supplement. And it's like, that's not healing,
Yeah.
It's time and place for all of it. But yeah, I would be curious, like, how did you get a little bit more into this? And when you say, you know, core, right? Everybody knows core as in like, oh, I want to have abs, right? But like, what does this mean to you and your clients and the reference of,
Yeah, it's my favorite question. So, I got into this. I was a dancer growing up. Like, I never really had like body image issues. Like, I did my thing, whatever. And then I had a couple of pivotive moments. It was early in my 20s. I was working as an event planner somewhere, and like it's a whole other story, but someone was like, "You'd be so hot with triceps." And I was like, "Oh my God, what's a tricep? Where's a tricep? How do I get one?" You know what I mean? Like, I had no idea that it was part of my body.
Hmm.
So that was like one of my, even as a dancer, even as somebody cheerleaded, like I was not, I was embodied in many ways, but I wasn't really aware of my body. And so that was one of my first pivotal points. And then similarly, right around that time, I was getting bloated so bad. I looked 6 months pregnant. I lived in New York City. People would give up their subway seats for me because they thought that I was going to have a baby. And, in your early 20s, it's really embarrassing. So I was embarrassed. I was ashamed because I was quote unquote healthy, healthy by eating like whole wheat bread and baked Lay's potato chips. But, that's what healthy was at the time, right? Like the low fat and whatever. So anyway, so I went down this path of like, I went to all the doctors. No one was able to quote unquote fix me. There was nothing wrong. I know I've seen this in some of the things that you do too. Like, all the labs come back normal. Here we are, yet my body was talking to me, but I didn't know how to listen.
No.
I just did what I knew, which was I went to nutrition school and I started to exercise differently. And I started, like you said, they all have a place. Like, this all helped. Like, I changed around my diet. I started to chew my food more. All of those things got me to that first level, right? That first level of healing, the bloating decreased. And I found Pilates around that same time. So I was really tapped into my core. I'm going to fast forward to make the long story short. So I started to see change. I felt change. I was helping other people at this time in my own coaching practice. I did a lot around eating disorders, and I like to say distorted relationship to the body and to food. And it was beautiful, and something felt missing. I didn't know what it was though. And as time went on, what I started to see, so I worked with, in weight loss, I worked with eating disorder, I worked with fertility. It was a part of my own journey. So, you teach what you learn. I worked with fertility. And what I saw was, didn't matter how much kale or water or whatever someone had, it was always a disconnect to their body. So whether they were trying to get pregnant, whether they were trying to lose weight, obviously as if I was giving you a formula, there would be different things. And it didn't matter because they had so much disdain for the body not doing what they wanted it to do, that there was creating such a stress response, such a fight or flight in the body, or freeze maybe even, right? And what I noticed over time was that most of this was in the core, was in the belly. The relationship to the belly. We hide it, we shame it, we judge it. It's supposed to be flat. It's supposed to have a six pack. Like, there's so many pieces of this. And so when I started to bring that into my practice and help people really start to like create a relationship around their core, their belly, I started to see softness, and I started to see people start to lose the weight, or to lose the weight of self-judgment, either way, right? And so I really started to bring that into my practice more and more and more as time went on. Because, as I mentioned, to me, the core is your compass. This is our guide. emotionally, physically, spiritually, energetically, nutritionally. So when you ask me what the core means to me, the core is the center of your being and doing, right? So it's not just the belly, but if you think about your trunk, let's say, like for podcast purposes, you think about your trunk, that's your core. Okay. Included in that is a majority of your spine. Yes, it's your abdominals and your obliques and your pelvic floor and things of that nature. But it's also your root chakra, your solar plexus, your sacral, maybe even your heart space, depending upon, right? So we have this energetic center that holds a lot of emotion. And in nutrition, we call this your second brain, gut health, right? We all know by now that it's a huge part of your immune system. It's a huge part of your stress response. So when I work and I talk about the core, I talk about it from this this angle of emotional, physical, spiritual, nutritional, and energetic. Yep. So I'm not anti you getting a six pack, but that is not our goal, right? Our goal is for you to find that core strength physically and emotionally, to know who you are at your core, to move from this place of power and body-led confidence that lives here. I mean, this is the place of our joy and our pleasure. And I'm not talking sexual pleasure, but like fun, like we want to have pleasure in our lives. We don't, so there's so many things. It's where we birth our babies in our books. And so that's what I mean by core. And that's sort of the mission, is to help people really just embrace this part of the body as this compass, as this like North Star for you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of describing the core. Especially when somebody hears core, really it automatically brings up those feelings of shame and, judgment usually. So I love how you reframe that. Now, when you're working with clients, do you have a certain processes that you kind of go through, or where would you typically start with maybe somebody that's coming in? I know it's going to be different for everybody, but
yeah, like you said, it is different for everybody. And, so depending upon what they're coming to me for, we usually start, one of the biggest pieces that I start with is unlearning.
Yeah.
We always start with the unlearn. So yes, we have to have awareness. Most of the people who come to me are already at that part where they have some good awareness of what they want to work on, or what they want to change, or what's not working for them, or what limiting belief they're hitting up against. So then we do the unlearning. Like, what are the root level core beliefs, if you will, pun intended, that keep coming up for you that may not be yours anymore? Mm-hmm. What are you holding on to that you've been, gifted down from, whether it's the media or, your parents or whatever the case may be, that you have taken in your body to be gospel, but you no longer need, or you actually never believed in the first place. And so how we have to release that weight first and foremost before we could add a new. So that is always my first line that I work with people on, is what are we unlearning? What are we unpacking? What are we unlearning? How, dismantling, whatever word you want to use. I call it unlearning. And we do that through, in the nervous system, we call it titration. I call it mini moments, little mini moments throughout the day where we work on these things. We check in with the body. Is this really serving me? Where we take a pause, we take a breath, we ask ourselves what our intentions are. Like, there's a bunch of questions that I have people start to really get to pause, have that mini moment with themselves, and get to know without judgment. It's the law of neutrality, right? So it's like, I call it name it neutral. Like, okay, I am feeling this. Period. No story. You know what I mean? Like, we're not meaning making out of it. And so that has to be, in my opinion, the first level, because that's what creates safety in the body. That's what starts to create the self-trust. So we can't stack new stuff on that old stuff that's no longer serving us. And so that's always my first step.
I find now, granted, we have, different practices and stuff, that there is the most resistance around that.
Oh
And,
yeah.
it's like, it's so much easier to just get told what to do, what to eat, how to move. Maybe people are open to like some mindset work, but you challenge, a lot of their beliefs, and, your ego gets really hit. And I'm sure you work with high performing type A women too, where it's like, it's difficult to get through and help them also understand in a way that's like, this is the way forward. It's not the
Yeah.
way you've been doing things. Like,
Yeah.
how have you found that has worked well for you or your clients?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you are spot on. This is the hardest part. And this is why I always start with this part.
Yeah.
It also takes the longest time. And we can chip away at some of these feelings and beliefs, right? Which is awesome. And so it gets us to the next step, or it gets us to the next step in our own process. But doesn't mean we ever go away from the unlearning fully, right? So that's one of the things. And I work on it from all of the angles, right? So if we're going from unlearning, we have the energetic part of it where I'm probably giving you some sort of somatic tool for you to decrease the ego mind, the hamster wheel thinking, something along those lines that I'm asking you to practice for whatever, 7 days, 14 days. I don't know. It depends what we're doing. But so you're doing that and you may not even understand it, but if you're committed to yourself in the process, this is the piece that sort of like feels weird and magic-y, and also it works, and so that's one part of it. And then, people wouldn't be coming to me for these things if what they were doing was working. Period.
Yeah.
So I'm not here to try to change somebody to do anything that they don't want to do, but I am a bit of a tough love, kicking your ass, give you a nice, beautiful hug to follow it, coach. And so like at the end of the day, like, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. And all of these things that do come up in this time, like, God, I can't believe, I have a client in her 80s and she's like, I cannot believe I have thought that this was my truth for so long. And so what happens is it's this beautiful awareness and invitation, but it's also a really tough spot sometimes. So there's a lot of love and nourishment around this time as well. And we put that into like, making sure we're doing things that bring us joy, and maybe we're not scrolling as much, or like there's other things that happen when we're opening up this big, like we're kind of getting cracked open in the beginning sometimes. And so we want to really make sure that we're nourishing ourselves, and we do that nutritionally, and we make sure that we're doing that in soft, loving movements, that we're around the people that really support us. Like, so there's those, we bring in all the pieces.
Yeah, you said something that makes me laugh just because it's like, how many times have people hired us and then they want to tell us how to do things?
Yeah.
But if that was working, we wouldn't be here right now. And so often it's exposing them to different ways of thinking that that make you, yeah, just question everything you've learned. I love that you mentioned unlearning. That
Yeah.
doesn't feel like a comfy word, especially for somebody that wants to just like always be the best in the room, always know the most. But it's true. I remember my process of unlearning when I went into bioenergetics from functional labs, and I was like, this is a different way of thinking and being when you're moving from very logical brain to more, you know, somatic energetic. And it's like I'm going to also highlight just one thing you said. I love that you said it's not necessarily like losing the brain going into the body, because I think a lot of times, and I've been a part of many mindset mentorships where it's like, just get into your body. I was like, I'm very logical brained. Like I am, but it doesn't mean we turn this off. It doesn't mean there isn't
We need that. We want that
together. But when one has just too much versus the other,
Mhm.
that's where we kind of create a balance. So I really liked what you said about that.
Yeah, I for years was get out of your head and into your body. That was like my tagline in my work, right? And just to realize that that's not true. I like my logical brain and I like my linear thinking sometimes when it's balanced.
Mhm.
And there's times when I'm too into my, I'm redoing my business right now and recreating a program. And there was like last week, I was so in my head about, is this right? Is this, I have to step back still after 20 years of doing the work and checking back in with myself and saying like, okay, step away, do some of the regulation tools, do some of the somatic tools, like allow this to be a more fun and creative process, so it's one of those things where like, not that I'm saying that it's such a beautiful thing when you can notice
Mhm.
when you're too much in your head, notice when you want your brain to come back on board a little bit more too, right? Like, so it's a really cool thing to take that notice and to like be really in tune with your body. And
Mhm.
yeah,
Well, and that journey is it's just that, it's a journey. And I think a lot of our clients want to rush that process. And you and I both know we've redone our businesses, I'm sure, multiple times as you grow and you evolve. So
yeah,
does the things that you teach and, especially with clients, they come in probably wanting one thing and going on this journey of just self-realization and exploration and opening up some boxes they maybe didn't really think they'd open,
yeah,
it's a very humbling experience and a beautiful one.
yeah.
So, if somebody was really wanting to work on their health, wanting to just tap back into their body a little bit more, explore who they really are, what would be like maybe two or three things that you would just tell them to do right off the bat? Maybe they're not not wanting to work with somebody quite yet, wanting to kind of explore this on their own. What would you kind
Yeah.
of tell them?
Yeah, I think one of the first things that's really important is, it's a little cliche because it's used all the time, but I think it's important, is the power of the pause,
Mm-hmm.
is to really use a pause often
Mm-hmm.
and use that pause. Like I grab, I don't have one with me, but like a coffee mug in the morning, right? Like I had to drink coffee. So like I have my coffee mug and that's my first pause of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Start my day after I make my coffee. I take a breath, I smell the coffee, and I create like an intention for the day, not from what I think I should do, but how I want to feel that day. So some days I wake up and I'm like, I'm tired today. So, so today I'm going to, give myself more grace and take it slow. Sometimes I want to go crazy and whatever it is so that intention for the day from a body place. So that pause in that moment and like, okay, this is how I want to feel today, or this is my intention for the day. And then later on, let's say you get in your car to drive to go somewhere, you're behind the wheel, another pause, take your breath, check in. How is my body feeling? What does my body want from me today? What does it need?
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of two things together. So it's the power of the pause and the inquiry, because we are the longest relationship we will ever have. I say this all the time. I think I'm going to change my name to not be a neurosomatic life coach anymore, but I'm a relationship coach. I'm just a relationship coach with yourself, you with you, because we forget that as time goes on.
Mm-hmm.
We are relational people, we heal in community, like, and that's beautiful. And we're with ourselves all the time.
Yep.
And so, what's the conversation you're having with yourself? Get to know yourself like you would want to be courted on a date, like when you're in the dating process, like do the same with you.
Mm-hmm.
So, the pause and the questions, the inquiry, what does my body need today? How do I want to feel? What's my intention for today? What's going to bring me joy? Start to ask yourself those questions, because what that will do is create open dialogue with the brain and the body. And when those two start communicating, intuition comes on board, clarity comes on board. So, again, you start to naturally move away from the shoulds without having to like try. Okay. Because I do think that's another piece of where we get caught up. So, to answer your question, power of the pause, self inquiry, and do the self inquiry around all of it. So, okay, maybe you think you should have the salad. but you're actually craving, meat and potatoes. I don't know, making it up. What ends up happening is when we don't listen to what our body really truly wants, we tend to have our cravings go out of whack. And again, cravings on the plate and off the plate. Like we have cravings for all kinds of things in life, right? So when we can ask ourselves that, and then we can listen to the body's response, because it's easy to ask, but it's hard to listen.
Yeah.
So then when we can listen to the body's response and we start to move that, we create that self-trust, and we start to really be able to let the nervous system relax. Because to me, that is the biggest goal. Nervous system is the foundation for wellness.
Yes.
Not the kale, not the crunches, not the water, not the sleep. Yes, please do all of that too. And when we're doing that because we're told we should, and we're checking off a box, and we're doing it because we have to, or we're trying to reach the goal of losing 10 pounds or whatever it is, that activates and dysregulates the nervous system.
Yeah.
So when we can slow down, and I don't mean you have to like meditate, but like just take a pause, take a breath, connect with your body, hand on heart, hand on belly, big deep breath in, long exhale. What do I want to feel today? What am I craving? And then be quiet to listen. And if it's going to feel weird at first, and your brain's going to be like, oh, I should do this, or here's my to-do list, or whatever. And so it's going to take a practice really listening into what the body is sharing. And then it happens and you're like, oh my goodness, and where did that come from? That's so interesting. But that's your clarity, that's your intuition, that's your core, that's your access to this powerhouse that you have within you.
Yeah, so true. And such a small, powerful thing that people can do. It's free. It takes 2 seconds, and but can really shift the needle in the right direction. So
Yeah. I mean, I'm all for things that take 2 seconds because, we're all busy.
and
Life is busy, like we don't need to make it more complicated than it already is.
no, and those micro shifts, micro
Yeah.
movements, micro moments, whatever you want to call them, they matter more sometimes than the big ones, right?
Yeah.
It's constant shifts of bringing your body into a more parasympathetic state throughout the
Yeah.
day rather than, oh, I did a yoga class for an hour one time, right? It's like, those are what keep our body and our engine running more smoothly, not just for 1 hour. And
100%.
yeah, I love that, chef's kiss. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wanted to learn a little bit more about the work you do. Um,
Yeah.
where can I connect with you?
Yeah. So I'm on IG a lot, which is powerhouse underscore by underscore Loni. So powerhouse by Loni. And you'll find all kinds of things there. As well as on Facebook, it's just my name, Loni Markman. And I also have a group that I'm actually relaunching today. So it's going to be called Body Love Rewired.
Nice.
And so you can join the group. That's where I will host things like I'm doing a Body Love Rewired challenge. It's a 5-day, just like love your body more. Basically, I'm going to give you 5 different somatic tools to drop into the body so you can create this connection that I keep talking about, this relationship to self. And so that's where all of those kind of things live. Yeah.
Love it. Needed.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll make sure to link I have your IG. Make sure to send me that group too. So
Yeah.
I can put it down, people can join it and follow along. But thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. If you guys
Yeah.
found this helpful, go shoot Loni a DM and um, you know, tell her some little moments that hit home with you, or shoot me a DM. But otherwise, thank you, Loni, for being here. Thank you, listeners, for being here, and we will catch you guys on the next show.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. And thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Bye. Talk soon.